entertain questions from the student online and or our audience here at HU. So good morning and welcome.
Good morning everybody. I'm going to set up my presentation now so that everybody can see it. And as Dr. Ramirez mentioned, my name is Garcia-McMillian, and I'm going to use my overview of what we'll be talking about this morning in terms of my study, the introduction, the statement of problems, and really we'll spend some time talking about the methodology, the findings, and of course the implication of the research. We'll do some questions and answers, and then from there we'll adjourn and be done. And I'll be very grateful for all of your questions and participation. So here's the introduction to my study. This is a qualitative, descriptive, hermeneutic, phenomenological study which examines the Latino student perception at two historically black colleges and universities, one in Tennessee and one in Texas. Historically black colleges and universities have provided assistance to first-generation black students for a long time. And some of the benefits to HBCUs, according to the literature, are the small class sizes because students are able to have more interaction. Also, the faculty relationships that they build, and through those faculty relationships, some students get to do research and other opportunities, so that really enhances their academic experience. The supportive environment that they have at the institution, as well as the social support system from peers while they're at the institution. So Bakersville, who is the president of the National Association for Equity in Higher Education, states that she understands that because HBCUs are such great institutions and offer such support, that should translate to Latino students as well. And so the study's findings can help practitioners at institutions understand Latino experiences and how they can be incorporated into HBCUs. The statement of problem is that Latinos are the largest minority in the U.S. at 15.2% of the population. However, they continue to be the least educated. In terms of four-year enrollment, they represent 54% of the population compared to 68% of African Americans and 73% of whites. So they continue to lag behind in terms of four-year participation. As a result of a number of barriers, they account for 9% of the bachelor's awarded nationally. So that's a very small number. And this population is expected to continue to grow up to 29% through 2050. So this is a large growing population, and institutions really need to invest in getting them educated. And how do we go about doing that? And this gap in education for this group are expected to be lower in their educational level. Campus climate, in terms of how do they feel at the institution, are they welcome? Cultural differences, so kind of that gap between their culture of origin and then the culture of the institution, and sometimes those two don't mesh. Financial resources, Latinos are 25% of the below the poverty line, so that's a large number of people who struggle with finances, and so paying for college could be a real issue for this population. Feelings of isolation, being in an institution where they don't see themselves, so they can feel isolated. Language, there's still maybe misunderstandings with English, or having materials that are both in English and Spanish, or helping their family members with materials that are in Spanish. And the parent educational level. Many of the parents have not attended college, so they are not able to always support their students from providing that understanding of what it was. They haven't gone that path, so they're not able to really assist their students by understanding that path themselves, even though they might support them emotionally in other ways. So the purpose of the study was to examine the Latino student perception at historically Black colleges and universities. The study is significant because it improves the dearth of research of Latinos at HBCUs. Currently, there are only 3 academic works that deal with Latinos at HBCUs. The Davis was a dissertation where she looked at Latino college experiences for students who were in a teacher education program at an HBCU. McQueen and Zimmerman was an article that talked about nursing education at HBCUs and how these institutions are prepared to help Latino students become nurses through these programs. And Osuna 2012 was also a dissertation that looked at first-year college experiences of Latino students at one HBCU. So these are the only 3 academic work with my dissertation that will be for. So it contributes to higher education literature on Latinos at HBCUs. The theoretical framework that was used to guide this research was by Community Cultural Wealth by Yoso and the theory of validation by Tendon. I really looked at what brought Latino students to an HBCU and what kept them there. So community cultural wealth looked at the knowledge and the skills that students attain through 6 capitals that Yoso explained, being aspirational capital, so what motivates somebody to go on to get their education. Familiar, what is the knowledge that they gain from family, it could be parents, grandparents, siblings, extended family. Linguistic capital, how do they communicate, use language. Navigational capital, how do they maneuver through the institution. Resistant capital talks about how do you fight those powers that be, those people who might perceive you as somebody who shouldn't be there, the stereotypes. And social capital, how do you build networks so that you can gain access to education and be successful in that realm. The theory of validation by Tendon looks at validating students both in and outside of the class and how that validation integrates them into the institution and helps with retention. So here are 4 definitions that really impact the study. One is, of course, college experiences, because that's what we are talking about in terms of the personal and academic experiences they have in the institution. Again, this is experiences in and outside of the classroom. The definition of historically Black colleges and universities, because those are the institutions that we look at. Latino students, in terms of being from Latin American descent, regardless of race. And you can either use the term Latino or Hispanic. I personally chose Latino because it's perceived as the label chosen by the people that we live. It's in terms of Hispanic being more a governmental place label. And perceptions. What are people's individuals' opinions about their experiences, and then how that builds a relationship. How do they perceive that relationship to be helpful or negative? So the methodology that I used, it was again a qualitative, descriptive, hermeneutic, phenomenological study. I used the phenomenological up with 5 participants, which we'll talk about more in a little while. And of course, I was ready for more, 10 or 12 or whatever, but again, being that this is a qualitative study, I went out, got as many participants as possible, and ended up with the results that I'll be sharing with you soon. And the hermeneutic phenomenology was the one I chose because it really allows the researcher to explore the perceptions of participants with their own understanding of the phenomenon. So the research question was, what are Latino students' perception of college experiences at historically Black colleges and universities? And I answered these questions and gathered data by asking this primary question along with 9 follow-up questions, or 9 open-ended questions and 3 follow-up questions. The institution selection, there are 100 HBCUs, according to the National Center for Educational Statistics of 2013. When I started my study, I found different numbers. There was a list that had 105, then 103, and then as we continued on our journey, we're down to 100 according at least to NCES. And what I did is I went and looked at articles that have been written about HBCUs who were specifically looking to recruit Latino students. From there, I was able to narrow it down to 10 institutions that I found through these articles, mainly from 2005, 2006. Then I went to all those institutional websites to see if they're still currently recruiting Latino students, because those articles were, of course, a few years old. And I found 3 institutions who were still actively recruiting either Latino students or looking to diversify their institution. So the 3 institutions I selected is one from Kentucky, one from Tennessee, and one from Texas. HBCU 1 has the smallest Latino population, but in their institution they had actually a Hispanic initiative that was staffed by 1 staff member. Then HBCU 2 is in Tennessee, and they had 1 Latino student organization that they had just started, and in their strategic plan, they specifically said that they were looking to recruit more Latino students. HBCU 3 in Texas had the largest number of Latino students and the largest percentage at 7.9. They have 5 student organizations. Their strategic plan didn't say that they were recruiting Latino students per se, but it did say that they're looking to diversify by 30% by the year 2015. So they were actively trying to diversify their campus. If you recall in my very first slide, though, for the introduction of the study, it says that I only had 2 HBCUs versus 3. The reason being is that I set out to get participants from all 3. HBCU 1, I contacted the person who did the Hispanic Initiative, the VP of Student Affairs, and 2 faculty members. And I went on social networks trying to find students and did all kinds of things, and unfortunately there was no response. So, of course, as a researcher, you have to make decisions at a point in time, and after you try too much for 2 months to try and get somebody, and the other institutions will respond, and you had to move on without that. The participant selection, I was looking specifically at Latino students who were currently enrolled at the selected institutions. Senior class standing. I did not select freshmen because at that time they may not have made a decision whether or not they were coming back. I really wanted to have been to the institution and had come back so they could talk about those experiences. Look for traditional age students, so between 18 and 23. Both men and women were eligible to participate. And again, I worked with the student affairs staff at each institution to do participants. HBCU 2 in Tennessee, they actually provided me 3 participants, their contact information. It was great. It was handed to me. HBCU 3, they put me in contact with the Pan-Latino organization, and I was able to contact them directly and to students volunteers. Once I got the student information and I contacted them, I sent them the official invitation letter. Upon them saying that they were willing to participate, I sent them the consent and the demographic information. So these are the 5 participants. The names are pseudonames, so it's not their actual names. Again, as I mentioned, there were 3 from HBCU 2, 2 from HBCU 3. There was 1 sophomore, 2 juniors, 2 seniors. Average age was 21. I asked about what the high school racial makeup was, just language spoken at the home. 2 spoke predominantly Spanish. 2 were bilingual, so they did both English and Spanish, and 1 was predominantly English. And 4 out of the 5 students were first-generation students, meaning unfortunately they were the first in their family to learn college. The data collection was through semi-structured interviews. They were one-on-one. They were all conducted via GoToMeeting and recorded with the participant's permission. And then after the interview was done and recorded, I went and transcribed all 5. It was between 30 to 60 minutes in duration. And what I did in the interview was I asked the primary question and I asked the 9 open-ended questions. When I studied data analysis, though, for the open-ended questions, I noticed that one of the capitals that I was trying to address through my questioning, which was linguistic capital, the question that I asked really did not get to the essence of really how these students communicated. So I came up with 3 new questions, and those were the follow-up questions. I contacted all 5 participants to see who was willing to answer the additional questions, and 2 out of the 5 did provide answers. The data analysis was the way that I generated my final list themes was by a 2-step coding process, which Cresswell felt was important. And so I reviewed all the answers myself and came up with a list of themes. Then I used the Atlas TI software to transcribed interviews through the software that generated some potential themes. And then from there, I came up with my final list of themes that we'll be discussing in the next slide. I used the analysis method was the narrative analysis in terms of generating and finding that meaning, and the thematic analysis to really look at how the themes relate to the phenomenon. In terms of validity and reliability, it's usually used for quantitative studies, but there's also some use and value in terms of using it in qualitative. And for this study, I used triangulation, which through the research that I was doing, it explained that it helps people know that the findings are noteworthy. For qualitative research, it's not something that you're going to be generalized like you do quantitative. And it might not be as easy to understand as numbers, because we like numbers and percentages, and that can be easier to comprehend. So when you're doing qualitative, we're really talking about a story and the narratives of students. That might not be as easy to understand for a reader. So the triangulation can help see whether it's truly noteworthy. The way that I did my triangulation for this study was two steps. One was to look at the responses between institutions, so what the general responses were for students from HBCU 2 to HBCU 3, and then I looked at them by class standing, so the sophomore compared to the 2 juniors compared to the 2 seniors. So 5 themes emerged from the data analysis, and that was campus involvement, culture integration, faculty involvement, family support, and then financing college education, and we'll walk through all 5. Campus involvement, all 5 participants joined the Pan-Latino organization, and what I mean by that is the Latino organization that encompasses multiple Latino ethnic groups, so it's not like a Mexican student association per se, it's just one particular group. And most participants were participating in a group that was related to their major. For example, there was a biology major, so she was in the biology club. There was somebody in supply chain management, so she was in that club. There were 2 people who were in honors programs, and they were not only taking advantage of honors classes, but also honors advising and other resources that the honors program offered to them. The students felt that the culturally based programs and organizations really helped to build that community amongst fellow Latino students at their institution. And the support from their peers was felt both socially and academic. The students who participated in the supply chain management group said that their group got together and not just did social activities, but they actually helped each other with homework, talking about their career plan, so they really supported about code switching. So those students who asked the linguistic calculus question talked about being able to speak in English and in Spanish and going back and forth, and how important their native language was to express themselves in Spanish. But they also didn't want to leave students out, so they didn't want to leave non-Spanish speaking Latinos out or other students who didn't speak Spanish, so they were able to switch back and forth, and that was still more comfortable. Sharing cultural norms, not just the Latino students sharing their culture, but also being able to learn from other students and their culture was important to them. And a sense of cultural integration had improved at the institution. In HBCU 3, one of the participants, her older sister, had also attended HBCU 3 a few years prior, but she left after 1 year, so she didn't really see herself in the institution. By the time my participant had attended HBCU 3, she felt that it had changed. She saw more Latinos. She saw herself in the institution, and she was persistent. And there was one perceived inequitable treatment in this research from HBCU 3. There was one of the participants who's part of a multicultural sorority, and she shared an experience about the Black Greeks on campus had benches for their institutions, and they wanted one for the multicultural sorority. And she felt that they were put through a lot of hoops and obstacles in order to get their bench, and they finally had to go to the dean to intervene on their behalf, and they were able to get their bench. But it was her perception. Did not interview people at the institution to know really what the process was, so I can't say that it was, but from her side, from her point of view, she felt that it happened because her institution or her organization was a non-Black organization. The faculty involvement was positive overall for these students. Talked about the experiences in the classroom, how students felt that the faculty members were invested in their learning and supported them in that. How there was personal interest outside of the classroom. One of the students from HBCU 2 shared that her native language is Spanish, and she was very comfortable speaking in front of people and speaking in English. And she had a faculty member that took such interest in her that the faculty member actually paid for her to go and take public speaking classes with one of the Toastmaster groups. And then assistance in navigating the institution. One of the students from HBCU 3 shared that right at the beginning of the year, one of her faculty members told her what areas to avoid. If you want to be successful in this school, avoid these areas that are more social so that you can make it in class. Family support is something that all 5 talked about, and how important it was for them to be supported by their families as they go to college. And regardless of the level of education of the parent, all 5 of them felt that it was important for the students to go to college and pursue their education and encourage them to do so. They also supported them financially, either by providing free housing so that they wouldn't have to pay rent, or some of them were actually paying for college or helping to pay for college. They also offered emotional support and encouragement to their students and told them to keep going, that there was a good choice. And they all expressed a desire to give back to the family once they graduated, and they felt that their degree was a way like they can go back and help their family. And financially, college education. Most of the participants talked about college affordability, and that being one of the reasons why they attended the HBCU that they selected. And 3 of the 5 were actually on scholarship. One of the students on HBCU 2 said that the reason why she picked her HBCU was not only was she receiving a scholarship, but she felt that if for some reason she was to lose that scholarship, she would still be able to pay out of pocket for that institution. So the implications of the research. This research looks beyond the traditional Latino college experience research, which tends to be around Hispanic-driven institutions, predominantly White institutions. It's really starting to look at HBCUs, which again has not traditionally been looked at. Again, I delivered 3 academic works, and mine were major works. It really addressed the importance of native language and how important it is to students, for the ones who do speak Spanish, to feel safe and share their language and be able to partake in that with other fellow Latino students. graduate student experience, this research focused on undergraduates, but it can be also looked from the graduate student perspective. And as a Latina at HBCU, it's interesting to me. Latino students' persistence at HBCUs. So what happens when they graduate? What is their involvement as alum? How do they help recruit other Latino students? So how can we see their progression when they have actually graduated? And some of the conclusions of the study is it provides an academic research in an understudied population in Latinos at HBCUs. It's important given again the decline of African American enrollment at HBCUs. So if HBCU Black enrollment is going down, then institutions to thrive, they're going to have to look at non-Black students. And since Latino population is growing, it seems like this would be a good opportunity to really mesh and create, again, a win-win situation for both the institution and the students. By and large, all 5 participants found their college experiences at the 2 HBCUs helpful. All 5 were persisting. Since I started the research, I know the 2 seniors did graduate, so they are HBCU alums. So they really have had a good experience and been able to persist at the institution. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, well done. Take a breath, and I want to welcome our Dean of the Graduate School who's joined us, Dr. Patricia Hampton. And what's going to happen now, because we're pioneering the online process with our team members. Then we'll go to Dr. Ortega.
Okay. Well, good morning again. Darilis, congratulations on your work and all of the efforts so far. Great. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the research process and discuss from the research problem and the research questions, what surprised you the most about the process?
Well, I think what surprised me the most was how challenging it was to get participants. We thought it would be a horde of people. Because I found it so interesting that people would leave my door down looking to share their experiences. And it was challenging. And I was definitely very happy with the participants that I think it was wonderful. But I had anticipated there would be more. And then I thought about it in terms of the research. And one of the participants from HBCU mentioned, and that's the one that had over 500 Latino students at the institution. She said that the Pan-Latino organization that she belongs in only had 10 participants. So then I put my 5 in contrast with the number of Latino students at HBCU 3 and how many were actually participating. But I felt, oh, well, maybe it's probably a par for the course in terms of the participation and who actually wanted to be part of the study. So then I felt better.
Okay. Now, were there any surprises in your findings? Did you find, was it a surprise what you found versus what your perceptions were in the beginning?
Not really. With the literature review, as I was going through the interviews and getting responses, I was thinking about, oh yeah, I read that in this article, that article. So it really was in line with the literature review. And so the findings themselves were not that surprising. I thought they were really in line with what the literature has talked about and supported what they talked about. What I thought was the only part that I would say that I found interesting
there any limitations to your research method? Looking back at the research method that you showed, are there any limitations to that particular method?
I think the limitation for me with the phenomenological study is it's really not about the number of students that you have. It's just you go through enough to, once you start seeing patterns, then you stop. So again, it could be 1, it could be 30. And for mine, I just was not able to get more students, so I didn't get to a point where I was able to say, okay, I'm seeing the same pattern, so now I can stop. I was limited in that sense that I only had 5 participants, so I don't know that if it would have been more, had there been more, findings would have been different.
Okay. I'm not sure how many questions I should ask. I have a list, but maybe I'll get another turn, so I'll allow someone else
This is your
to
show.
ask you some
I
questions.
know you have a lot. This is your show, and committee members, I will say the floor is yours. The only limitations I can perceive that the order paper, it's 6 a.m., 5 a.m. her time. She leaves to work, and Dr. Johnson leaves to a conference, but please feel free, Dr. Hall, to come back after the other 2 committee members have
Okay.
had a chance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ortega, or is Dr. Johnson ready?
Dr. Johnson, are you ready? Which one?
Go with your questions, Dr. Johnson.
Okay, correct. Is there a shaker?
You're fine.
Okay. There are basic recommendations on your defense. I do want to ask a couple of questions. Those questions to you. Would you share about the graduation rate of Hispanic students from high school?
Yes, they have, in my research, they have a very large dropout rate as well. So sometimes students don't even make it out of high school in order to make it into higher education. And for Native Latino students from the U.S., their dropout rate is at 10%. But for Latino students who are born outside, their dropout rate is close to 20%. So their chances of graduating out of high school is already a lot lower than other students. So for them to get to higher education, it can be a big barrier.
Okay, another question I had was there anything surprising, and you had already talked a little bit about this, that just really stuck out from the interviews? Just anything unexpected that you wanted to, was just surprised about?
Yes, I would say definitely from the, in terms of looking at from the different HBCUs, I felt that what I was surprised about is HBCU 2, who has a smaller Latino population and only 1 Latino student organization, it felt like that institution really embraced Latino students, bringing them in, really folding them into the fabric of the institution. And so I expected that more so from HBCU 3 because in Texas it's a larger Latino population, and so I thought that they would be more integrated. But definitely from the responses, it felt like the individuals from HBCU 2 felt that they were really more involved and really integrated into the institution and really a part of the culture compared to the talking I got from the participated in
I have a couple of questions. One question is, this is the nothing to support opportunities for the HBCUs to recruit
a large part of what you discussed involves student and family. And I'm just wondering if you would share with us a little bit about how you see a difference, if you see a difference, between the familial role as part of familial capital versus social capital. Maybe there isn't a difference and it's just an overlap, but I think all of us think that family, parents especially, serve such an important role in all of this capital, as were the experiences of your particular person.
Yeah, and I think with the familial capital, that is specifically talking about family and then anybody who sells in a family role, because we also talk about kinship relationships with somebody that you see as a family member, and gaining insight and support from those individuals, particularly in the family. And social capital, of course, because you're talking about social networks, it includes family members as well. So that was a big part of the social capital research, dealt with families. But social capital also expands to other individuals. So it could be peers, faculty members, staff members that can help really build that network to help students navigate the higher education system. But definitely, in social capital, it encompasses the family as well, because they can be part of that social network.
Right. No, and especially in these, since part of the description is providing financial assistance, and often that first falls on the family. For that role, it occurs. See, I'm just scrolling down because I think the designation as well. And I think three of my comments can all be combined, because I just highlighted them at different junctures, but I think one of the maybe themes that I saw quite a bit in chapters 4 and 5 that I thought could be expressed as another idea for future research is the idea of participation in Latino student organizations, and one of the HBCUs that you mentioned before, the 500 Latinos holding expanded account organization, and yet our university, which was 5, had organization. So I just wanted to highlight that maybe that's another area for future research, very specifically, Latino student participation in student organizations, Latino student organizations, and campus activities in general, you mentioned. And then I think the other, and I'm sorry that there was one question, right? So the last comment that I wanted to make is that there seem to be other areas of potential future research, and that will always be the case. But two that really struck me, one was that I think from your study, and you probably disagree, we could learn not only about the Latino at HBCU, but maybe the Latino and college students in general. And certainly you write quite a bit throughout the presentation about how all the research, with the exception of those 3 words that you mentioned during your presentation, have been about Latino students, and particularly why and why. But I think potentially studying Black students at HSI. I think it was potentially an overlap of an institution that has maybe one major area of focus, but that belongs to a different community than that major area of focus, which was the case here with looking at HBCUs, and potentially looking at non-living financial advisors. Just some thoughts that came to mind. No other questions. The only other comment I would make is that it was a pleasure to read the dissertation. It was impeccably written, and I was just really honored to have been part of it. Congratulations on your talk.
And thank you for getting up so early to participate.
You're welcome. It helps that I'm a morning person.
Yes. It has helped tremendously that you're a morning person. Committee members, I'm going to open the floor to our guests because of time. And then I know Dr. Gyllenhaal, before I do that, do you have other questions at this time?
Oh, I just have one more.
Okay, and then I will invite the audience.
How can your research be used in practice?
And what? I'm sorry?
How can your research be used in practice?
Oh, yes. So for HBCUs who are interested in recruiting Latinos and looking at Latino college experiences at their institution in order to retain, they can really look at how they can incorporate native language, so they could use like language groups maybe, and have students who are taking Spanish classes come talk to the Latino students, for example, and have that interaction. They can have more cultural events. I remember one of the students at HBCU 3 said that they hosted a Latino Salsa Night workshop with members of the Black Greek community. So that gave an opportunity to integrate students through a social means. In terms of administrators, they can use this information to think about finances. If you know that Latino students are likely to not attend college because of financing, can there be a scholarship opportunity or maybe a workshop for Latino parents about financial aid that can be hosted at that institution to bring in the community? So there's definitely a number of ways that administrators and student affairs staff can utilize this research as they plan to recruit and retain Latino students.
And I failed to ask. Thank you, committee members. Bear with me, I failed to ask my question. And this has to do with the theoretical framework. And we don't usually do a perceptions theoretical framework.
So I do believe in I looked at a number of different theories, but I ended up with these two because I felt it really wanted to hear their stories about their experiences, and then from there determine their perceptions. But they have it really it really allowed
only your interest in the topic, but the knowledge that you brought to the presentation. The PowerPoints, we were able to follow along, but they were not scripted. You didn't read to us. You actually just used it as a guide, but you were able to share with us a little additional information along with the PowerPoint, and that was one thing. It was great to just sit as an audience member and listen and feel as if we were part of the research because you did such a fine job. I think
Right, and I understand that, but for the reader who did not take that walk with you, all right, and you are going to offer some recommendations to other doctoral students who may want to replicate this study, then we have to have a path to replicate the study, all right? And so it's not easy to unbundle the answers to some of these questions because they are so embedded in there. So I would encourage you to, in your document, if there is a question in which there wasn't a substantive response or whatever the case might be, that you tell us that you answer that in the document because that's going to be all that we have. The other concern I have deals with triangulation and your interpretation of triangulation. In triangulation and qualitative, we have 3 sources of data. All right, and right now, just from the document, you had 1 source of data and you asked the subsequent question by institution and by class. But when I listened to your presentation, you actually had 3 sources of data. You went to the institution's website. That is a source of data. When you look at documents or a website, that's a source of data. Okay? When you went to the student services staff to ask their support in identifying the students or whatever, that is also a source of data. So I'm going to encourage you to identify triangulation the way Creswell envisions it. Identify the 3 sources of data, tell us why they were important and how you use them, rather than the 1 source of data that you have and you simply ask some additional analysis questions. Other than that, I think you did a fantastic job. I understand your study and congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Madam Program Coordinator. And with that last powerful exchange, I am going to invite...
Yes, I do have a quick question. In reference to the 3 follow-up questions that were asked, you mentioned that the participants agreed to answer, but the third one did not. And I'm just a little curious as to why.
When I did the original interviews, I let all 5 of them know that if there were follow-up questions that I would contact them and that it would be voluntary. And when I contacted all 5 again after the study, or after the original interview to ask the follow-up questions, they didn't really give an answer. They just chose not to participate. One of them told me she was really busy, had some family stuff going on, and the other 2 just didn't follow up at all.
Okay, thank you very much. You did a very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Gillespie. And Sharita, I beg your pardon.
She may have to do the chat if she...
Sharita, are you there?
Check the chat. Okay, so scroll first to see if I saw her name. Scroll up.
Dr. Johnson, are you hearing us?
Oh, she said no questions. Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we are truly signing off. In the committee, we are going to enter deliberations as soon as our candidate has left the room. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Dr. Garcia-McMillian, you have the last word.
Thank you. I really appreciate, I know this has been a long journey, at least it feels that way. And I really appreciate all of your support and feedback and getting back to me, and everything you've done has played a part of this. And I couldn't have done it without you, and I'm really grateful for the team. I can only wish other people have such a great community like you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, doctor.
Thank you.
And the next 3.
Thank you. Now I can have a drink.
Me too.
We'll do it. Thank you all so much for your outstanding work. And Dr. Johnson, we see you. Thank you all. Dr. Jalem Paul, have a great supper. Have a drink.
Yes.
Dr.
It's 5
Thank you.
o'clock. I was done. Yay.
And Dr. Ortopay, Ms. Johnson.